Hi, I'm Caitlin Furry, and I decided to do my speech over intercultural communication. For many people in the United States, it isn't uncommon to smile at strangers as you walk by each other. However, if you were in France, smiling at a stranger, you would get some weird looks coming your way. This is an example of intercultural communication. What is normal in some cultures isn't really necessarily the same for all cultures. Intercultural communication, as defined by the Language Network for Quality Assurance, is situated communication between individuals or groups of different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. In layman's terms, it is communication relationships between people of different cultures. Intercultural communication is something that everyone needs to educate themselves with because it's something that every person will encounter sometime in their life. Because we live in the United States, there are so many opportunities to learn about intercultural techniques because you can use them in the career field, new relationships, and just something to have in your back pocket later down the road in life. When it comes to international jobs and just jobs in general, this is a key type of communication skill that you will need. The United States, as we know, is a melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities, so you don't know whom you'll be encountering on a daily basis just down the street. If you're going to Japan, for example, on a business trip, you need to know how the Japanese culture works and particularly how they greet each other. They always bow to one another, which is a sign of respect. If you don't do that, don't do your research, you might come off as rude and inconsiderate and blow the whole job deal. When talking about the job market, Intercultural Communication in the Global Workplace by Iris Varner and Linda Beamer explain how technology also takes a huge involvement in intercultural communication, and we need those skills now more than we ever have before. Because technology and how we communicate with people is always evolving, whether that's through our phones with text messaging, email form, telephone conversations, or video conferences or Skype, you need the skills on how to communicate with different cultures. By knowing about power distance, high and low context, and just cultural customs in general, it can make or break your job duties and why you're there on performing on business. For instance, in the 13th edition of Interplay, it states that the United States has a low power distance compared to places like Korea, where it's high. This means that employees, for example, have a lot less input on how they perform their work compared to people in the US, where you have the ability to make your own decisions on how your work gets done. You don't want to overstep any boundaries in these different cultures, so you need to educate yourself in these different topics of intercultural communication. Moreover, creating new relationships with people from different cultures is also a reason people would have to have some sort of intercultural communication skill. Intercultural relationships occur when people have different values, norms, beliefs, or role expectations. Role expectations could differ depending on, obviously, the culture, the age, or the gender of the person. According to Illinois State University's John Baldwin, in his article about communication and intercultural communication, he states that even if someone seems to look the same as you or act the same as you, doesn't mean that they are from the same culture as you. Intercultural and interracial relationships are now more normal and accepted by people, and people need to learn these skills so they know how to act around people of different cultures and that are different from you. However, this isn't just the case for romantic relationships. You can meet someone down the street tomorrow that is different from you or from a different culture than you, and you might not know what culture they're from. Sometimes it can be intimidating to try to talk or hang out with someone from a different culture because you don't know how to act around them, you don't know what to talk about, or you don't know how to talk to them. By studying intercultural communication techniques and skills, you will most likely use them in your personal life more than you would in a job market or for your job. Another reason for learning about intercultural communication is just to know and have something in your back pocket for later in life. There are many reasons that someone would need to learn about other cultures and the way they operate, as we previously discussed. In everyday life, we can meet someone from a different culture, sometimes without even realizing it. Whether it's asking for directions in a different country, going to dinner and ordering food, or just having a conversation with someone you just met, intercultural communication can really help you out and help that relationship grow. An example of knowing an example of knowing about intercultural communication and using it without giving it too much thought is the example at the beginning about smiling to strangers in foreign countries. In the US, that's obviously very normal and it's a sign of like, hi, how are you doing? But in France, it's like, oh, why are they smiling at me? What's wrong with me? By studying this type of communication, you can open your eyes to so many different cultures without even going to those specific cultures. However, if you ever decide to go and experience the rest of the world, you won't seem as a stereotypical, ignorant American that doesn't know anything about any other people in the world, because you will have opened your mind through intercultural communication and learned these techniques that will help you. After all, intercultural communication is something that whether we realize it or not, we will use at least one time in our lives if we haven't used it already. There are many instances like the job field, creating new relationships, and just to have something later in life that will really open your eyes and open your eyes to the world and